Good evening and welcome to Lialusin, Full Moon Armenian Goddess Circles 2025. Tonight is a re-recording of our maiden voyage of Lialusin featuring the goddess Tsovinar. I had a few technical difficulties that night, so rather than spend hours and hours and hours fighting with the footage, I decided to just re-record it. So I hope you'll bear with me with my pronunciation of a few Armenian words. I am a complete novice, so please forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation. I'm doing my best. So without further ado, let's roll. Program tonight begins with some prayers and invocations. These are written by me, calling in the elemental guardians for our circle, honoring the ancestors, and a prayer of awakening to the goddesses. Then we'll talk a little bit about the etymology of Tsovinar's name, some goddess archetypes that she falls in line with, and then Haley from Armenian Folk Magic is going to talk to us about Tsovinar from the Daredevils of Sassoon. And then when Haley's done with her talk, we'll come back to me and I'll talk a little bit about Tsovinar in the landscape of ancient Armenia, along with some associations and materia magica that I have discovered in my research working with the goddesses. And so it's part of my devotion and my priestess practice with the Armenian goddesses. I hope you enjoy the presentation, the folklore, and the exploration of this magical goddess. And hopefully you can join us live for one of the next 4 circles coming up in 2025. Calling in the elemental guardians. Barav Tzez, spirits of the east, guardians of air, Tsovinar's thunder, wind, song, and breath, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Tzez, spirits of the south, guardians of fire, the sacred sun, the hearth and spark of life, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Tzez, spirits of the west, guardians of water, Lake Sevan, the inland seas, rivers and blood, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Barav Tzez, spirits of the north, guardians of earth, Mount Ararat, the Caucasus, stone and bone, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. With respect and honor, blessed spirits of the land, bear witness and guard us as we awaken our ancestral wisdom and the timeless magic of our sacred goddesses. Honoring the ancestors. Take a moment now to prepare your space. Light your candle for the goddesses and pour a little fresh water for your ancestors. Barav Tzez, ancestors and beloved dead, tonight we lift your names to the heavens with the full moon as our witness. Just take a few moments in this bit of silence to speak the names of your own ancestors, known or unknown. May the goddesses guide us to heal our traumas and mend our hearts, to witness our joys and join in our laughter, blessing us as we weave a new tapestry of sacred magical community. And a prayer of awakening. O beautiful, immortal goddesses of Armenia, we call to you, ancestors of blood, ancestors of spirit. We gather under this full moon, your scattered children, yearning to return to reclaim the lineage of our magic. Once you flourished in our hearts and in the land, long since eclipsed by war, conquest, and patriarchy. Let us lift the veil of Christianity that has fallen so heavily and return you to the bright light of the sacred sun. With love and honor, we respect our family's faith, and with reverence seek to unearth its tender roots. Walking side by side on these paths of love and spirit, may we each find the divine in her myriad faces. O beautiful and immortal goddesses of Armenia, rise up from the soil, the seas, and the sands of time. Return to us, radiant, whole, and exalted in love. May your magic ignite in the flaming of the rose. Tsovinar, goddess of sea and storms. The etymology of Tsovinar is interesting and a bit complex, coming from some different lands of ancient Anatolia and beyond. We have Tsov, which means sea or large body of water. Kov or Tsov, loanword from Urartian, sue, meaning inland sea. Then we have Nar, possibly related to Nara, a primordial Hittite and Hurrian goddess, or possibly the Iranian Nar, which means woman. Then we have Kovian, which translates to lightning thunder goddess of the celestial purple sea. So you might guess there's a little more in that translation than in those 6 letters, but that comes from, I think, a 19th century folkloric source detailing the goddess. All of these root words refer to a spirit or a woman or a goddess associated with the sea, spirit of the sea, light of the sea, or nymph of the sea. All of these are describing Tsovinar. Tsovinar as mother goddess. Our primary source reference for Tsovinar is the medieval epic Sasna Tsrerer, or the Daredevils of Sassoon, and most of the descriptions we have of her character come from later retellings and folkloric embellishments over the centuries. In the poem, Tsovinar, or Kovinar, is importantly described as the ancestress of the hero's lineage, an elemental mother goddess connected to water, thunder, and lightning. A Titan goddess. Although we don't have ancient literary or archaeological sources describing Tsovinar specifically by name, we can see evidence for her presence in Armenian folklore and the mythologies of neighboring Bronze Age cultures. Many deities connected with seas and storms have a titanic quality that embodies the fierce and uncontrollable elements of nature, sometimes even described as the unformed prima materia of the cosmos. From Mesopotamia, we have Tiamat, the serpent goddess of the abyssal waters. She was ultimately cleaved in two by her son Marduk, her 2 halves or twins becoming the earth and sky. The Scythian Api, primordial earth and water goddess of the Scythian heptad or pantheon of 7 gods and goddesses. Api may even be the root goddess that inspired Artemis of Ephesus. And then from the North Caucasus, we have Satanaya, Ossetian matriarch, goddess of fertility and water, also related to the old tale of the Elanian princess Satanig and King Artaxerxes. And finally, Cybele, from Phrygia. Cybele is the primary goddess of central Anatolia, once known as the Kingdom of Phrygia. Her cult became so widespread in the Hellenic era, her worship spread to the far corners of the Roman Empire, including the Balkans, North Africa, the Levant, and Europe. In Greece, she was syncretized with Titan goddess Rhea and became known as Magna Mater in Rome, but in other neighboring regions, she was syncretized with various local goddesses. In the Caucasus, we can see parallels between Cybele and Tsovinar, Nane, and Anahit. Like Tsovinar, she is considered a goddess of thunder and lightning, a primordial mother goddess of the mountains. The Sibylline hymn to Rhea Cybele, translated by Virginia Stewart Avalon. Daughter of the earth and sky, incline to my prayer, O goddess whose chariot is drawn by fierce lions running, mother of storms whose lightning shakes the dreadful shield, with throbbing drums and sounding brass, the frenzied dance is begun to honor time's blessed queen. Savage joy is thine in the mountains, in the battle cry of mortals, O mother of war. Clever victory, liberating power, mother of the gods and mortals from the winds of heaven and sundering sea. Come from thy far wanderings, blessed and divine. Come in peace and attend our labors. Bring to us rich abundance and drive away disease. Come, Holy Mother, and bless this sacred rite. And with that, I would like to hand this over to Haley to introduce us to Tsovinar from the Daredevils of Sassoon.
There we go. So obviously this is about Tsovinar, that's why we're all here. So to kind of introduce her a little bit, the story, I mean, I wrote a little introduction that you've clearly gone over. She has a lot of elements in different areas, like you mentioned, the various beings in Anatolia that have similar attributes, so I'm just gonna move past that. So in the story of the Daredevils of Sassoon, she is, as you described, the mother of heroes. But she also has to go on this heroic journey herself to a certain degree. She's been bestowed a task by, and this is a Christian story, so by God himself. She is a Virgin Mary character, where she is a virgin and impregnated by God to give birth to twins. So how it goes is enemies descend upon the city, and even though the city is very strong, they are unable to hold them back, and they make a deal. They say, we will spare your city and spare your people if you provide us the Princess Tsovinar, who is known for almost being so beautiful that she shines. And she, her king, or her father, is originally saying no, but she chooses to sacrifice herself to save her people, which is in of itself a very heroic act. And that act is what would lead to the lineage of heroes throughout the stories of the Daredevils of Sassoon. Her story is the first. Now, in most literature, mountains are perceived as very like masculine figures, so liquid leaving a mountain kind of makes sense as to her being impregnated by God when she drank it. And now she's now in this new situation where, well, these children that God has bestowed upon her, and she doesn't fully comprehend why, how will they save her? She has to hide her pregnancy because she is a virgin, and most of the time people would not believe her if she's outwardly saying she's pregnant. And she wants to avoid this man as much as possible. So now he does eventually learn of her pregnancy and learn of her children, but he also knows that she has not been with anybody, so he's able to kind of put the pieces together that she did not cheat. She still is a virgin. He has to obey her, basically, because there were certain limitations to her sacrifice that he has to basically do what she says. And she demands he build her a tower, which is how she's managed to stay away from him. This was essentially God providing her saviors to save her from this patriarchal style of violence within a patriarchy in of itself. So it's a patriarchal tale, but also displaying a way a woman would hide from patriarchy. And I also believe it's probably supposed to be a story that represents how, even though there were women warriors in early Armenian history, and to this day, obviously, um, they weren't as common, and all women, in a sense, especially giving birth, is seen as a very heroic act, because not only do women birth the men that would be soldiers in most of our world, they raise them to be that way, to be upstanding, to essentially protect the women of Armenia, the women that make the sacrifices for them. So again, this isn't a very patriarchal tale. Oh, I left this. Sorry. It's a very patriarchal tale, but it is displaying a lot of elements of surviving within a patriarchy. I went over this. I'm sorry. Oh yeah. So another aspect is her specific end of conflict. So what we do know about her in her more chaotic sense of how she would have been perceived pre-Christianity, she was also an ender or of conflict and chaos in of itself. I spoke a lot about this, so oh yeah, like, so she kind of plays on a lot of like story tropes of the damsel in distress, when in reality she is planning her own freedom, and how women, we will often play a role to survive, but in the end we come out stronger, as she does in this sense. Her sons, um, Sanasar and Bagdasar, they are bigger than most humans, and it is this story that, while some may deem it as like, oh, she's just a mother, or she just survived. She didn't just survive, she trained these generations. How one woman, as most motherly roles would take it, as she changes the whole course of this legacy. Her one action, her one sacrifice, and her one heroic act for her people creates this whole line of heroes, which is definitely where a lot of, I think, the honoring of her in the story, as she is the first, I think is very important. And another interesting, like, pagan aspect of her Storm could also be her connection to the god Vahagan, because he was also associated with Storm. And if we look at other deities, often, when there's a deity of war, more masculine, that's kind of more sided with like the bloody aspect, there's usually another goddess that is more with the wise aspects of war, and just wanting to end conflict. And that is exactly what Tsovinar did. So that is kind of the essence of her character in the story. It's quite different than her most like pre-Christian story, but I do think it is important for us to know her Christian story, because it can give us a little bit more insight. Because what we know about her pre-Christian wise, we don't really have many aspects of her specifically related to motherhood, but this story allows us to kind of see through the lines in her connection to motherhood and being a mother of heroes, and possibly even other deities that we unfortunately just don't know about. There's been a pattern of twins in Armenian folklore that possibly could stem from Tsovinar as a goddess, and possibly her own children that she may have had, and what they may have served. So even though there's very minimal about her, we can probably read through the lines and analyze the Daredevil assassin to reveal more information about her. But yeah, that is my little presentation on the Daredevil.
Thank you so much for that, Haley. That was awesome. Now we're gonna go back to the land of Armenia and talk a little bit about Tsovinar in the landscape. The inland seas. Although modern Armenia is a landlocked nation, Tsovinar is associated with the inland seas of Lake Sevan in Armenia, Lake Van in Turkey, and Lake Urmia in Iran. These large lakes can influence local humidity, wind, weather patterns, and amplifying the force of storms in the region, echoing Tsovinar's qualities as a storm-bringing goddess. Though her story is said to take place near Lake Van, it is Lake Sevan that has retained her legacy. Lake Sevan, the jewel of Armenia, is the only freshwater lake of the three, providing irrigation and food in the form of trout, pike, and carp for thousands of years. The coast of Lake Sevan is peppered with rich history, including monasteries, castles, Bronze Age fortresses, and prehistoric petroglyphs. Near the southern tip of Lake Sevan is a village called Tsovinar, named after the goddess. A 19th century etymology theorizes that Sevan originated from the Urartian word suinia, usually translated as lake. This is attested on an 8th century BCE cuneiform inscription by the Urartian king Rusa I, found in neighboring Odzoberd on the southern shore of the lake. So here we have a map of Lake Sevan, as well as an image of very famous sculpture, which is popularly known as Tsovinar, although the official title is Long Live the Blue and Clear Sky, and that was created by Kachatur Hakobian in the, I think, 70s or 80s. And this sculpture of Tsovinar is located near the northwest tip of Lake Sevan. You can see the red pin on the map. That's where the sculpture exists. And the purple pin on the map is where the village of Tsovinar is. So now this is the fun part for me. Materia Magica for Tsovinar. These associations are based on my own research and practice. So in my devotional life and my priestess work, I have sort of associated amethyst with Tsovinar, as well as some other symbols and materials. But I thought I'd just talk a tiny bit about amethyst. Amethyst has been treasured for thousands of years in the Near East, especially in Egypt during the Middle Kingdom. It was believed to protect against intoxication specifically, sorcery, and bad luck, and was used for jewelry, intaglios, and even carved into drinking cups. Amethyst is the color of celestial purple associated with Tsovinar, and its calming effects can be applied to her tempestuous aspect as a goddess of storms. The famous Ijivan amethyst deposit is located in the north of Armenia in the Tavush region, about 15 kilometers north of Ijivan. And then the botanical sea buckthorn. Sea buckthorn is a prized botanical that grows naturally on the shores of Lake Sevan. This densely foliated shrub produces volumes of small orange berries that are rich in vitamin C and micronutrients. The fruits are made into juice, jams, and liquors, and the medicinal oil from the seeds is used for healing burns, itches, and other skin ailments. The oil is moisturizing and revitalizing, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory. The contrast of the rich berries with the merciless thorns of the branches really aligns with the paradoxical nature of Tsovinar as a nourishing mother and an angry storm goddess. fish, serpents, and dragon stones. The Armenian highlands are home to a unique type of megalithic monument known as vishapakars, serpent or dragon stones. These ancient menhirs appear to date back to the Middle Bronze Age, or possibly as early as the Chalcolithic, which is the late 5th millennium BCE, and are curiously carved with theriomorphic motifs, mostly fish, which are called Pisces, and bovid, which are referred to as Velis imagery, not actual serpents or dragons. The purpose of the stones is not known for certain, but they were conspicuously erected near sources of water, which hints at deep ritual and agricultural importance. The vishaps are found all over Armenia, but there is a strong concentration of them at a site called Karmir Sar at the base of Mount Aragats, about 2 hours west of the northern tip of Lake Savan. It's theorized that both styles of vishaps refer to an ancient cult of water, the Pisces representing the divine subterranean sources of fresh water, and the sacrificed bulls and rams of the Velis type represent offerings to a storm deity, bringer of the life-giving rains. We can see hints of Tsovinar in both of these cultic monuments as a mother goddess of the inland seas, as well as the fierce storm goddess. Considering the estimated age of the vishaps, it is highly probable that they were originally dedicated to a singular primordial mother or water goddess. Azdahak, the god-king of ancient Media, which is present-day Iran, a mountain man himself, spoke about the threat of the Highlanders to his nation in the form of a prophetic dream. I was in an unknown country near a mountain which rose above the land, the peak of which was covered with bitter frost, and it was as if I were being told that this was the land of the Armenians. And after I had looked at this mountain for a long time, a woman in a purple dress and a blue veil appeared sitting on the peak. Suddenly the woman gave birth to 3 sons who were perfect deities. The first, riding a lion, sped to the west. The second, riding a tiger, sped to the north. And the third, riding a dragon, was invading our land. This is from Moses Koronatsi, and that is a section of his book from the histories. And these adorable vignettes are from the animated short The Mystery of the Vishap Stones, which you can find on YouTube. So this is clearly a representation of Tsovinar, referring to her specifically as Mother Goddess of the Armenians, and portraying her clothed in a Pisces vishap. She rises above a large lake with storm clouds gathering in the sky above. So you can see in the third vignette the fish shape of the vishap, which is cloaking the goddess in the sky. And now, modern practice, connecting with Tsovinar. These are just some small ways that you can connect with the goddess and begin to craft your own devotional practice with her. Make offerings at a lake or at the sea. Leaving offerings of flowers, fruit juice, wine, amethyst, sand, or crystals at the shores of your local lake or body of water is a beautiful way to connect with the goddess, as well as participating in cleanup days and environmental activism. Weather magic. Tap into the goddess's primordial power by practicing forms of aeromancy or weather divination. Pay attention to your local weather. Notice patterns in the winds, lightning, and thunder. Practice cloud gazing and divination with specific questions in mind. Try setting out a large cookie sheet sprinkled with flour just when the rains begin to fall. After a short time, bring the sheet inside and see if any symbols or images have been formed by the raindrops mixing with the flour. I just want to give a little shout out here to this beautiful image. This is the goddess Tsovinar, pictured as the chariot in the Armenian tarot by Pambak Games. And now we come to the end of our very first Lialusin circle, and I'd just like to offer a small closing prayer to seal up our magic for the night. May the goddesses rise and the land be healed. May the ancestors preside as our magic is sealed. Thank you so much for coming, for watching, for sharing, and hopefully we will all see each other again at the next live Lialusin.